Good morning, everyone, and it is a Monday morning, and I'm awake. No, but just getting started. And yesterday worked a little bit about. I want to be able to share out a community to my shared server, but I want to make sure that only my shared server is the one requesting that particular file. So to do a little bit of extra work on that, I want to make sure that it is getting called from something that I requested it, not they're requesting it from me. So to do that, I use a password hash key, and I played around with creating the hash key yesterday, but I had to sleep on that and kind of think about how I wanted to do this. But now that I've figured out where I was in it, now I'm going to set it up and finish getting that piece in place. So okay, so let's jump right into the code and Monday morning, so let's get some coding done. Okay, the first thing was when I created the key, I did a random string of 16 characters. And basically B to A, so that becomes a base 64 character set. And then I sent it in behind the scenes to do a hash on it using PHP. Well, what I decided is there's a couple more fields I need to do. I need to actually send in the mold group that I'm coming from, so I'll know if it's a community, a string, or community, building, or thing. So mold group, and in this case it's got an extra tick mark there. Okay, so in this case it's going to be community. And then the other piece that I need to add in here is I need the web ID, which in this case is going to be the community ID. So that tells me what community I currently have open, and I'm going to pass these two values right here. Well, let's see, we have mold group, and then we have this web ID. Since we're already using those files in the uploads, that's no problem. We can reuse them for this. It is the proper item for this, so we'll go here, and web ID is here. Then what I'm going to do is behind the scenes, I'm actually going to, first of all, we're going to create, let me get to the right table. We're going to actually add a couple fields to the table. So for now, I'm going directly in here. Okay, let's hike up the table and let's clean up my workspace here, get it to the right things. Okay, so set that as default. That's the table we're working in. And communities, what we want here is in the community table, oops, I didn't mean to view the table, I want to alter the table. And what I'm going to create is over here we have share user ID, share template date, and a description. We're going to add share hash. And the reason for doing this is because by doing a share hash, I don't remember how many characters. For now, I'm going to put it 255. If I adjust that later, great. And I'm going to put that, I know, tedious way of doing this, moving up. Well, actually, what's the name? It is share user ID. So when I click apply, I'm going to change that to user ID. And this particular statement right here, we're going to do the same thing on the building and the thing table. Okay, so we don't need to save that because we already added the table or the field to the table here, which notice it is share hash. Okay, so the same way like when you set a password in for doing logins and stuff, when you create the password, you create a hash and you store that in the table. Then you can use the PHP, the checking, to be able to see if the password entered in gets hashed, and it can be compared against the hash that's in the table. The thing is, they are not the same thing. They're using a hash that comes from the machine that it originated from. So the thing about this process is it would have to be originated from this particular machine, so that kind of makes sure that the hash is valid for where it's being hosted. So because we did that, we're able to actually pull the hash and make it work here. So what I want to do is I'm going to let's go to buildings. Let's do the same thing. I keep doing that. Instead of opening the building table, we need to alter the table, and we're going to add this password share hash. And we're going to make it 255 characters. Like I said, if we need to shrink that down, or if we can, we will. I'm going to make it be blank by default. And now we'll apply that, and it is after share user ID. Apply. We're good to go on that table. And then same thing on the things table. Alter table. Look, I didn't click open it this time. No. Share hash. We're going to share our hash. No. 255. Bad joke, I know. Okay. Let's see. Share user ID. Okay, so now we've added the fields to the table. One more thing I'm going to do while I'm still on that thought is in my process here under the functions, I have table definitions so that when you install it, you get the same thing I'm doing. So we're going to start with, we're going to look for buildings real quick. There's our buildings table, and we have this share user ID right here. We're going to put share hash right underneath that. Share hash, and it's going to be 255 characters. Okay, and I'm going to copy that row because communities, under the community table and the things table, we're doing the same thing. Well, this is going to make sure that when we install it to here, it actually gets added to the new tables right when they're created. So even though I manually did it this time, I want to make sure that each one of those tables have that value. Okay, so now we've added it to the table definitions. We've passed a couple more variables in here, and I want to pass these two variables along with the not the key, but the key. Yeah, that's right. So we're sending the key in there, and I want the mold group and the web ID. So let's pass those two values in with this on this get key hash, which is going to be found in our uploads class. So uploads class key hash, and we are passing z mold group and z web ID. Now the reason I did that is because we're creating this keyboard hash, but what I want to do is I want to actually store that into we're going to store that into a there we go the field that we just created. So we create this, and case if we're doing community, and we have two more cases. This one will be used pretty universal between community, building, and things. It's going to be a single building and thing. So we'll know which one we're building. And then here, what we're going to do is we're going to okay, so we need WalkTheWeb frames class, and we're going to do query. And in this query, we're going to put update communities, and we're going to set that share hash equals, and we're going to give it this value where community ID equals, and then we're going to pass in our value for our community ID here, which is this one. So Okay. And our share hash is going to be this word. And okay, so basically we're passing in this value and we're bringing this back. But you know something? I don't need it to return the hash to me now, which makes it a little bit more secure yet. We are going to just return the key again. It's a little decision I decided was the best way because we create the hash and we're not actually exposing it. So it stays in the database, gets written to the row, and then we will basically use that item and we'll check it. So what's going to happen is this key gets returned and it is going to be this key field, which notice we have the Z key being read in from the post and the key field just being returned back. There's no changes to it. So we actually get the value right back at itself. And also now we do not need this key hash to be written back to the user. So let's take that field out and let's take that global value out. Where'd it go? A little higher. There it is. We're not going to be messing with that. We're going to be passing this value back. So let's look in our value that we're returning. We're returning this. We already know that it's a community and a thing because, well, actually, we need to do a case statement here or switch. And we're going to see when we pass this mold group through here, it actually reads it in and it passes it right back to myself. So this allows me to use that value to be able to determine which path we're taking back. Oops, I didn't mean that. We had a cursor there. We need it here, case, and this is going to be community there. Case community equals that. Break. And just to make sure we're closing that out, there we go. And that is the mold group is this one. So what we're doing is we're basically going to bring it back based on which one it was and send the key back to the proper statement of which one it's trying to fetch. So we will be creating two more cases here. One's going to be building and one's going to be thing. And I tend to be very consistent with the programming, but since I haven't created these yet, we're going to say building, we're going to say thing here with a capital T. And I'm going to remark them out for now so that when I get to that point, I'll remember that they haven't been written, but this is where they belong. So it kind of keeps it all in place, but okay, so that process gets us back to there. Now we're sending it back and we're returning the key value. So from here, we're getting the key, and the key is what we're going to send to this community share request. And now we know we made a full trip to here. That part is actually not needed. We're making the request to here. Now from this site, which is my shared site, it's going to receive this community share request. And basically this one, share request right here, is going to be sending the key, which I want to make sure that is what we sent. Yeah, I did change the word to key there. It's going to be sending the key. So we'll do that like that. And then we have the community, and then we have the user ID. Now, this particular file, when it receives this request, what we're going to do is it's going to do the processing of that file. So we need it to actually, it's going to make the request from back over the other site, from the one it came from. You know what? We need to send more information because we do not know what site just asked for this. We just know it asked. The best way to do that, we could do the referring, get it from the server variables, get the referring type server variable. That way they can't spoof it from somewhere else because, well, actually, it's probably just as spoofable as anything else in this world. I'm trying to think what's the best way to do this. What I want to do is I need to know the return path back to this site. So if I set the, let's see, what piece do we need? We want, if I look in the, I know where I can find it here, when you're running the site and it loads up, we run this session right here. Okay, and let's see. Okay, so over here, what we do is we set a number of variables. Let me just scroll down to where that's happening. No, that's not it. Keep going, keep going, keep going. I know it's right down here. And I know what it looks like even at a fast pace like this scrolling. Okay, here we are. And let's see, I have default domain, see, we have default domain. We have domain name. Default domain should be, does that one include, I know, I need to see, does that one, oh, that's only the default domain name. That doesn't tell me if it's using a particular protocol or not. I thought I had protocol in here too. There it is, protocol. So if I use these two pieces right here, I'll know if it's being called from HTTPS, and this one will tell me what domain name it's being called from, and I can tell it to make the call and rebuild the query string of where I'm trying to go. So first things first, here we need to pass from here the two variables. So we're going to add protocol equals plus this variable plus domain equals plus, and I've got the other variable right here, so we already know that's what we're going to be using. Let's go here. Okay, so we're now passing protocol and domain back to this other page over here. Let's add those two. Actually, protocol, I'm gonna default this to http:// and then if it reads one in, it'll go to whatever it's set, but and domain equals, we're gonna call it blank. And this is going to determine if we even have a path to bother to go to. So protocol, and then we have domain. Okay, so then based on that, the URL that I want to call equals protocol plus domain dot, and then we're going to go to our specific path, which in this case is where am I going? I'm going to connect / and you can jump on at any time if you want to test out what I'm doing. You can go to 3d.walktheweb.com. Otherwise, this particular part will happen when we run it from the site that you've downloaded. So we'll get there with the testing part of it. But right now, we're going to just keep chugging along in the coding side. But yeah, you're welcome to jump on 3d.walktheweb.com at any time and see more about that side of it. If you're just joining us, we're releasing 3D Internet at the end of the month. So we've got 2 weeks to finish it up and get it ready for our open source release. which of course is going to continue on the work in progress, but at least you'll have a copy of the code to be working with and be playing around with and using while we continue to add functionality and build plugins for it and everything else. So that's the plan, that's where we're heading, and that's what I'm doing with it. So let's see. We have the default domain. Let me see. We have those areas. The file that we want it to bring up is under connect. We created this community share.php, and let's see what. Okay, let's first add that on. Whoops. Let's add it on here. PHP, and then we're going to add what we're actually going to be calling. In this particular case, we are going to not only do the community ID, but we're going to add a couple features to it. Community ID, and then we're going to equals, and we'll have the community ID that we're requesting, and then we're going to add this key value, because without the key, they're not getting my file off my server. This one's not using Unity, it's actually using Babylon as a gaming engine. I've played around with Unity, there's nothing wrong with it. Babylon just had more support for end users at the time, so that's the reason I chose them. And when you do some searches and stuff, most of the time I'm seeing that they are like the friendly version of everything for people that are programmers and non-programmers. A lot of support materials, and they've come a long way. Babylon, babylonjs.com. If you check them out, they're the gaming engine behind it. And so basically, you can actually code directly in Babylon. Yes, correct. And with that, you can do code directly with that, and then you'll be able to insert it into your buildings and things and stuff that you're creating on my site. So basically, you can do native code for Babylon and insert it right in here. So that'll kind of like bridge the gap for programmers to be able to use this product as a distribution and as a creation tool. Okay, so what we have now is we have this particular call, and I'm going to make a call from my server. See, this is running from my server now, and that's the URL that we want to call. What I'm going to have it do is, okay, I'm not going to have it do this piece just yet, and I'm going to, let's see, we're going to block off this stuff so it isn't trying to return that type of a value at this time. I opened a connection and I'm not using it yet. Let's take that down to here, and I'll decide when I need to create a connection and use it for whatever call I'm going to do locally. At this time, I'm not doing that just yet. There's a lot of coding to do before we're ready for that piece. But what we're going to do is we're going to use curl from the PHP side to make the call out to the server and get the JSON, get it returned, then work with the JSON and basically get the piece that we need. So a couple more things I need to do to get this in place. Okay, so let me just and okay, okay, so I just pulled on my other screen. Sorry, I should have just done that right in front of you. But what I pulled was an example from Stack Overflow showing how to do curl. And this one returns JSON and decodes the JSON into something right here. So that will allow us to pull the JSON, and notice the URL is right there. CH is the curl init. Transfer it. It's grabbing the file, curl there. Okay, it's going to close that request, and then based on this result that it received from the other server, it's going to, in this case it does a var dump, but we're going to make that, we're going to make that, we have result, we'll call this results with an S, and that's going to be our JSON that we're going to be working with, because we're going to actually decipher through the JSON, and then we're going to have to tell it what to do with each section that we are expecting to receive back from the other piece. So okay, so here we go. You can install Babylon. You can play around with Babylon direct. Babylon has its own playground. If you go to the website, you can actually do demo. You can try their code. They have a lot of examples, and you can also use their playground to try things. They have a lot of examples. So if you try things, when you're looking at the documentation, there's all kinds of ways that it shows you what you can do and how to create it. So when you click on something, for example, how to create a mirror surface, for example, you click on that, it'll show you in their playground how you do it. What you can do is copy that code, any of the code that you create there, you can actually bring right in and run from my code natively, because it is using that same Babylon engine to create things. So I'm going to give you a tool that allows you to submit the script so that it puts it into the place where it needs to be. So we can get it where while you're walking up to your building or your playground or wherever it is you're designing, it loads that script when you walk up to it and unloads it when you walk away. Okay, so we did the JSON call, and helps if I spell results right. Results. Okay, so we know that's what we're going to get back at this point. Now, before I go farther, notice I'm asking for the community with this key value. So if I go back to my community share file, I need to first receive the key file. And remember, can I have a tool now? Babylon is a tool. You can download it. You can go to their site. It has a download key. It has a download and everything else. So you can actually get Babylon right now. You can run it locally. You can run it from their servers using their playground. There's a lot of things you can do with that particular tool, and start playing around and learning how to code directly into the gaming engine. But help yourselves on that one. Just go to that babylonjs.com that I sent over there, and the rest of this is going to be me getting this ready for the end of the month to release it. On the 30th of this month, I'm releasing this code that I've been working on, so you can download it, load up your own version of it, and play around with it locally, or you can put it on a server. It's open source. You're going to be able to do what you want to with it, and that's the whole reason I was setting that up. We're going to release this open source on the 30th of this month. Okay, so we're getting our key value, and basically here though, before it runs this process that downloads this whole thing and everything else of this, I want to check the key value and make sure that it's valid. Because if it's not valid, I didn't request it, and I'm not giving away my design to anybody without knowing that the request came from me to give them permission to take a copy. Okay, so with that said, what I'm actually doing is we're going to run a query. Actually, we are going to, let's do this a little differently. We're doing the connect file, and in the connect, I have a number of processes, and I'm going to make it work from here. I don't want to make it where you have to use multiple different. If you're creating a connect file for your code with your plugins and stuff, then you should be able to use the connect tool, and then everything works from there. Okay, so what I want to do is I'm going to notice that we created in the uploads directory. We told it right here up in the uploads class, and I told it to get key hash. But when we're receiving this, okay, so we are getting the key hash from there. We're actually creating the hash and preparing it for using it. You know what? Let's change that name. I want to make sure that it's very comprehensive what we're calling it. It's not really get key hash. We're actually we're setting the key hash for the process, so that instead of getting it, we're actually setting it so that we can validate against it. So if I come in here and we change that to set key hash in all of the locations that it uses it, it becomes a little more comprehensive. Whenever I design a name or something, or whenever I do something and I get it all worked out what it's going to do, I do keep track of what I okay, and I do keep track of what I'm trying to do with it, and if it ends up being something that there's a better name for and stuff, I'm not afraid to change it, especially at this early stages of the game. I want to make sure everything that when you see it, you'll know, hey, this is setting the key hash. I'm not going to get a hash out of it. So even something small like that, I want to make sure that it is doing what it's supposed to and that we are getting the piece that we should. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to write a process in our connect function, because this is where something's going to be requesting it, and I need it to be able to validate from this place if it's a good hash and that if they have permission or not. And since all the connect files are going to be where they're getting the files from, this is the ideal place for this particular function to be. I took a copy of this particular piece because it's going to be confirm key is what I'm going to create, and I'm going to pass in the key, the mo group, and the web ID that we're talking about. From that, okay, we are going to, it's not going to be using iframes, it's going to be using WalkTheWeb DB is going to be the function that it's going to get to the database, and we will change this to connect. I just like knowing where my functions are coming from, and if they throw an error, I want to know which function it throws the error. So this gives me, notice this is the path, core functions, then it has this file name, and then it has this function name within that file. So if it throws an error and it logs it, then basically I can use that path to know exactly which function on what page in my file structure to go to and look at to find out what's going on. I have one more piece I didn't do on this right here, and that is, notice that whenever I work with the database, of course I picked the one table, we have to use this table prefix before all of our tables. So when I go to communities, it's not communities, it's the prefix and then communities. And I'm going to do the same thing on the connect file. Okay, and what I'm going to do is we're going to select, and I want to select the community ID. This should do what I'm hoping to. From this table where what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring back, let's see, we should be bringing back the hash. Let me think about that. We've already done this once. Let me not have to think too hard. In the user table, when I confirm a password, let's see, login attempt. What I do is I'm bringing back username. No, I'm bringing back password attempt. This is not empty. Then password verify. This is what I need to do against the password hash, and I return the password hash from that particular table. So I'm doing the exact same thing. If you notice, I'm going to go to here. I'm going to get the share hash from that table where community equals the value that we passed in here, which is right here. And from this, what we're going to do, this, we don't need that line. We're going to need, oh yes we are. We'll decide that in a minute. Equals array, and this particular one, we're going to take that and we're going to make it equal to this. So we're pulling the query, we're getting the hash, and that's going to be from the building and from the thing. So we're going to make this function work right now for all of them. Buildings, and that'll be building ID. And then we're going to do it for things also. At least there's a consistency in the way I wrote the table, where the thing ID equals that. And from those results, okay, so for each, and was that Z results? Yes, I've got that in there. Results as row. And that's going to be, based on that, we're going to get share hash equals, and it's going to be row, and the value share hash. That'll get us the share hash value, and which we'll put share hash equals blank. Then from there, we'll now check the value based on what we did here, which is the new password comes in, which is our key in this case. We're doing base 64 decode, so we want to make sure we're, oops, where am I going? How about here? We still did the base 64 decode. I'm just kind of following the steps here. Then we have our password. If it's not blank, which in our case is the key, and if it's not blank, then once we get our password hash, then we need to do password verify. And this is going to tell us if it was correct, if it was true, if it worked. We don't need to hash that one. We just need the hash that was in the database, which is here. Then we're going to, if password verify, and this part here, what it is we're sending this hash back on its own machine, and we're sending the key value that we've passed from the end user. So now, what this basically is doing, when we fire off this process, the first thing it's doing is we are writing and creating a current key, but we don't even save the key in our database. We don't know what that key is other than we create a hash from it, just like we do with a password. Then we write that key to the database as a hash in the table of whatever you're trying to share. Then it goes out and it sends the key over to the client, which is my shared server that's going to actually be getting the file from you. Then when it goes back, so we're doing a whole security layer here, when it makes the call back using that key value, it validates that key against the share hash that we've saved in the table. Now by doing that, we get to verify it. We know that it came from this particular server and that it's good. So if it doesn't work, then what I would want to do is, personally, I'm going to make it delete the actual share hash, because if the share hash doesn't exist, actually that's the other part, if we're going to make sure that the share hash exists and that the key exists, because if they're blank, we don't do anything anyway. So if the share hash is not empty and is set, then basically we're going to run this process and we're going to know if this thing happened and it worked. You know what, I'm not going to do an else statement there. I got a better way. So this is going to be here, and we're only validating that if these two values have values, so we're not going to deal with if it's blank. So is not empty. And is set. And there. Okay, so we're guaranteeing that those two things have value. Then we're verifying the password based on those two values. And if that all happens, confirm key, we're going to say Z, what do I usually call this? Success equals false. And this is the only time it's going to come back true is if this piece right here happened and we got it validated. And based on that, we are going to return not the key, but we're going to return this success value, so it's either true or false. And the last thing I'm going to do, if the success at this point, once we validated and did everything, in fact, let's go one more step farther. Let's do it at this level, equals false. Then basically I'm going to clear the key value out of that table because there's no reason for the hash to still be valid. They're going to have to click the button again on my end. So they get one try. It's either the correct value or it removes the hash and it does not work. So we're not going to let them sit there, pound it from the outside and trying to do it, considering it doesn't even have a hash value unless they're actually running this process to try it. So to send out and make it go out. So this is like we're locking this thing down pretty good here. So from here, the last thing I want to do is based on which mold group came through, which means community building or thing, and I'm just copying this here just so that we have the table names. And what we're going to do is we're going to update communities. And we're going to set because that's the one they're testing, we're going to make it set the share hash equals blank. Now, you would think, okay, if somebody just pounds away at our server and tries different things and sends over values, they could actually blank out the share hash value without knowing where it came from. But this particular page is designed to only be called from my server, so that kind of limits that type of activity in the first place. And then we would also, even if somebody tried to spoof it or something like that, we'll have some protection on our servers against flood attacks and different things like that. So if it happens too often or something, we can always build up that type of a response against that. But in the meantime, the only thing we really need to do is make sure that we're setting the share hash equal to blank so that it can't potentially be downloaded. Okay, so we set update there and update there. So now we've wiped out the share hash based on the item that we did with the mold group that you're trying to send it from. So that means you got one shot getting it right, get the thing, get the download, and it works, or it didn't work and you do not get it because it clears the hash. So from our uploads page, from our share request, when this server goes and tries to do it, this page does this request. So now we wrote the process. We need to call this file here, and we're going to, okay, let's get back to this page. If confirm key, that's going to be on this connect class now. If confirm key, where we send in the key, the mold group we already know is community. And the last thing is the community ID is the web ID that we're dealing with. So if that's true, we're going to do this whole process here, which takes us all the way down to here. And I'm going to stop it right there, and I'm going to put an else statement here. So we can actually tell it to what it's going to send back. For example, error, did not work, we didn't like that, you don't have permissions, something of that nature, and we'll make that go all the way to there. Okay, so now we're confirming to make sure that it was sent from the right place with the hash key that I've requested for you to get a copy of this particular file. And then down here, we're going to, okay, we're going to now tell it what we're going to give back as a response. And in this case, response equals array, z response, helps if we make it a variable. And what we're going to give it is let's do it this way. Z response, and this is going to be, I like my S error instead of just error, and that's going to be blank. And so what we can do is, actually, is it an array or is it not? Yeah, let's go ahead and make an array, and we'll call this error text, and that, whoops, that is equal to, and we'll make it blank. In this case, error text you do not have permission to download this file. Okay, download this file. Sure, why not? Okay, so that will block them. We'll get this response based on if they have permission, if the request was originated from us and that it was done. You know what? I just thought about it. What we can do here also is we don't want to just run this if it was a false success. We want to clear the value because we've confirmed and it worked, and we got one shot at downloading it from the process. So we're going to basically clear that regardless, so that once we know it's success and it worked, we wipe out the value that worked, and we're back to square zero with the value not being stored in the database, so that it's not open to a second try, basically. So that'll bridge that gap on there. And the last thing we're going to check here is we're going to come in here and check from the results. We now know that it's JSON. We should be able to check and see. Because I remarked out the page that tells it this page is JSON. But the share request is being called by the other server. Okay, so the results are going to be processed. This is where we're going to do all of our code that says what we've received. We're going to validate it, and we're going to write it to the local database on this side. And then what we're going to do is we're going to create a response based on that, and it's going to be either that it was successful and it did it, or that it was a failure. So the only thing we really need to know is at this time is the community ID. User ID is fine. We don't need to do too much with that. And we're going to say S error. And here I'm going to say success for now. I know we don't know if it's a success or not, but the reason I'm doing that is because I want to know that this process worked all the way through here. It grabbed a file, and well, you know what? I'm going to also send back the URL because I want to see that it built it correct. And so let's put a couple values in here. I just want to know that each piece of this, see, I may have to disable some of my own error trapping just so that we can actually test this out without any problems and make sure that it all gets bounced back and stuff. So this page in the response back from the user should have these variables. And when this page gets called, let me think. Okay, so we're back to here, and that's when we're calling this page that has that request. It is going to go out back to my server, get all the data, then we're going to do something with it and confirm it and write it to our database, and then we're going to give this response. And the response is going to be, for now, I just want to see that it gets this far. So notice those were the values that I expected on the other end. I just copied them so that I'd have them here locally. And so now the response, see, that's not it. Okay, I'm opening too many pages here. The response is just the straight array of those values. There's no level 1, level 2, or anything like that underneath it. So from here, we should be able to log and let's try URL equals response dot URL. Let's get that, and just because it made it this far, community ID, 2 M's. And well, let's go full house here. Let's get all 4 of those values back just to see that it was valid and made it all the way to this particular piece, made the full loop. That's all I'm testing at this point, is to see, does it get all the way back to here? So first things first, I'm going to let's test a couple pieces of this. Let's see, how are we going to test this? Let me think here. I can tell you right now, open them the site, within the site, and then back to the other site. There's, you know what? I plan to do a demo this afternoon. Let's save testing this for that demo, and the reason is because I've already broadcast that we're going to demo around 1:30 today, and I'll do a short demo, probably a half hour, but I'm going to test it at that time because I'm going to make sure I'm using the right computer to do it. Ha ha ha. Yeah. So if I do it on this computer, while I'm streaming, while I'm doing it on this computer, it's not going to make it back to you, and it's going to not look pretty, especially if you start losing frames. So I'm going to plug in my other computer, which definitely can handle this, and I'm going to swap out and be able to do the demo like I planned at 1:30. So for now, I'm just going to cut this where this is. We've gotten this process all the way to here, which does confirm that it's being called by the right person and that it's being taken to here. Now, just so you know, when we get this value and we're in this share request, what I have to process is, in here, we're going to be checking for a bunch of things, and then we have to break them down based on the different pieces that they have. So just so we can see which ones we actually have, note on this share page, we have community, connecting grids, action zones, community molds, building, yeah, you can see the list. These are all the values that this has that we will have to process and scrub the data and then put it into the database, knowing that it's okay. Now, because when I wrote the process and I was hosting it myself, hey, I know I am holding both ends of the code. You're teaching Japanese English? Oh, sorry, got my attention on that one. That's pretty cool. But because I was holding both ends of the code, I knew what I was sending and what I was expecting to receive. So many times I took for granted that, hey, if I click this button over here and it's on my code, nobody else can really mess with that without hacking my server completely. So basically then it goes back in here and whole new meaning to the word web crawling. Yes, you got it. Oh, I love that word. Yes, definitely. We have walked the web, and the whole reason is because you technically are walking from one website to another. You know what? Since you're here, I'm going to do the quick 1-minute version of catching you up and why you should follow me. Okay? So bear with me. Here we go. First of all, I created a 3D CMS that I'm going to release open source in just 2 weeks on the 30th of this month. What it allows you to do is separate what you are building into 3 different parts. You can create 3D community scenes, which are your whole scene. You can create 3D buildings, which can be a 3D shopping store, can be a game, can be an area, a region within the scene that it wants you want it to do certain code when you're in that area. And then there's also 3D things, which allow you to basically, it's your avatars and your vehicles, your boats, your planes, your if it's a table and chairs, furniture, all those kind of things that you drop into your buildings and your scenes. So this is a 3D CMS that lets you easily create them. I built it over Babylon JS engine, so programmers can basically use code directly from Babylon JS, and this is a whole layer that tells it as you're walking towards something to load it and unload it as you walk away from it. So it allows you to actually walk the web, which is walking where one building can be hosted on this server, another building can be hosted on that server, and you create these scenes with all these buildings that are hosted anywhere on the internet. The cool part about that is you can build a game, for example, and then you use it like a distribution channel. You go, you create a plugin, just like WordPress, but yet for this 3D gaming engine, and people can download the plugin and add it to their scenes. Let's say you designed a car. Well, you could do freemium offers. You can say, I've got this car, you can drive it around, and if you really like it, then, hey, you can pay this fee to me, the developer, making money. We like that. And basically, you can have, maybe it upgrades, and now you can have other avatars that climb in the car with you, and you can give them rides. Or you can hike it up, and you can basically make it where they can get supercharged car now, and it drives faster or better than all the rest of them and stuff. The thing is, we can create scenes, programmers can create different games using this as an architecture to be able to load and unload, but it gives you a distribution channel to do it. Let's say you want to build a 3D store for 3D shopping for a business. You can you can get hired by them, build the store, drop it in a scene. Well, they can maintain one store in one place and yet drop it into as many scenes as they like. You'll get stats because we do Google Analytics, so you'll know where the scenes are coming from. You'll know where the stats are coming from. You'll know where people are visiting it, which communities, which scenes, which URL they came from. And basically, you get a lot of traffic. And we, most importantly, get rid of banner ads. Yay, because they put the businesses directly in the gaming scenes. We no longer need banner ads taking up part of your screen. We hate that, don't we all? Especially when you accidentally click on them and they think, oh, you like my site. No, you put the banner ad in an inconvenient location. Okay, that's my 1 to 5 minute, whatever it is, talk telling you what this is. But we're looking at being able to create things like Ready Player One or even Ralph Breaks the Internet. We're looking at all the cool things to be able to create. We're looking at putting it in the hands of the developers with a standard of how we distribute it and how we use it. So basically, you can create one component and drop it into this massive worldwide game. That's what we're doing. And we release it on September 30th this month at I'll release it. So follow me so you know what time of the day I release it. You'll be able to download the code, set it up on your server. It's free. Awesome, and thank you. We definitely are going to plug away at this. We're making it secure, but I'm putting it in the hands of the developers so that if you come back to me and say, hey, we need this in the core product, I'm listening to you, and we're going to work on it together and perfect it so that everybody can use it. But think of it as like WordPress does for regular websites, WalkTheWeb does for 3D gaming. Okay, so that's where we're at, yes. Okay. So basically, right now I'm writing a process. One of the core functionalities in the 3D CMS is you don't want to have to build every last thing that you want in your scene. For example, let's say I build a house for somebody. Okay, I don't want to have to build, a table, a chair, a bed, or whatever. So I give you the opportunity as a programmer. You can actually create items and then you can share them out, which builds your reputation points at how well you use this system and how good of a talent you are. You're going to get reputation points. For everything you build, you get reputation points, even if you don't share it. But if you decide to share it, what happens is a copy of it gets placed on my shared server. Then anybody that's building something can search that server by keywords, and they can download and get a copy of it. Now, since it's a copy, they can change it as much as they want. And basically, they can use it in their scenes. But you get points for having created it and sharing it, and then for every single person who uses that item that you shared. So your reputation goes up with the better items that you create. So basically more people would want to share items and be able to build their reputation. Now, if you got a business looking for you to create something for them, let's say I'm a t-shirt shop. I may want you to create a miniature golf course to put next to my t-shirt shop to help attract attention to my t-shirt shop. See the idea? People will go there, get used to going there, love playing the games, play miniature golf, have a blast, and hey, by the way, this guy's advertising t-shirts. I might want to buy a t-shirt. That's the idea. So you get these businesses to pay for you to create the games. So now every last developer out there can become a game programmer like we always dreamed of since we were kids. So basically we can do it, and we don't have to be part of one of the big game manufacturers to create components and make money at it. So we're building this in here. Okay, so basically you share out your items. You build your reputation. That reputation helps you get jobs. Not only that, but since I'm tracking what you've shared with me, I can actually give you a digital resume of everything you've created, things that you've enhanced, things that you've shared, and give it kind of a stats saying, look, by the way, you want to hire this person, here's their resume. Click this link, and now you get a list of all the different things they've created. You can click on certain ones. We can set it up to be able to get feedback from the people that received it if they liked it. We can do all kinds of things. We can have people rate them, but basically that would give you as a developer really cool stats to be able to get the next job or charge more because you are the pro, not the amateur trying to do this. So that's the plan. I'm going to put everything in the hands of the developers. We're going to create a worldwide industry of 3D browsing, which is 3D internet, which is free for people to get and connect up to and use these tools. And then, of course, I'm going to create some services that if you want to use my shared services, you can pay, there'll be freemium offers, so you can do a bunch of stuff for free. And if you want to upgrade, you can do certain things. But in this core product, think about this. We are giving it multiplayer. So anybody that comes to your URL and visits your community, you automatically see them walking around in the scene. We're going to let them create their own avatars, or people that want to or can do their own avatars and stuff, which reminds me, we can import directly from Blender because Blender can export to Babylon. Babylon can be loaded. We can actually create things in Blender, real high quality, and drop them right into scenes. So that's another little bonus there. What was I counting on my fingers? No. Okay, so basically we're creating an industry that allows you to do all this stuff. That wraps it up in a nutshell. And okay, so let's get back to it. What I'm doing right now is I'm actually writing a process and making sure that if you share something, my server can grab that item. It's setting up a security key so that nobody else can just download something from your site that you're hosting. That way you have to give it permission. It goes out, gives me permission to retrieve it. Then I retrieve it from your server, save it to the shared location. So that's where I'm at in this piece of the code. Okay, so let's see here. Where am I going? These are the various pieces that we're going to be returning. I already know that it has the error. I've already tracked that on the other end. And this is going to be to this page. And just so I have a list locally, these are the pieces that I'm going to be pulling back from here and deciphering from this result set that I've retrieved. Okay, so we're going to be, there's a lot of pieces here. I'm trying to think if I've done something. I think I've done some similar things, and if I do, I'm trying to think if I've done code similar to this already, or do I need to just write this from scratch? Of course, if I've done code similar, then basically I just saved about, hours of time in front of you working on it. But, oh, by the way, if you want to play around with my test environment, here's how I got started. I've been working on 3d.walktheweb.com for a while. You can create an account on there. You'll have admin to your own sites. You can play around and check and do a lot of stuff in there. But that was my test case site. There's a lot of functionality in there. There's a lot of things I've tested. You may find some things that are broken. Hey, it's what it is. Then, just so you know, I took a copy of that and started to create this open source version. And then I globalized all the variables and I stripped it down to the core product, and then I separated out things that will be plugins that are optional depending if that's what you want to do on your particular server. So that's how I started. That's how I got going down this path. Now, because I was hosting my site and I was hosting the shared site where you could share out your items, whenever you shared something at the time, all I did was do some database work behind the scenes. I didn't actually have to expose that process. So that's why I'm spending a little extra time in there, and I'm actually coding it and making it all work from that side of things. So with that, we basically have the piece that we're having to do some JSON distribution back between the two. We validate the request, we bring back the code, now we've got the code back, and now we're going to actually do something with it and make sure that we get the parts that we need to. We're going to scrub the data, making sure it's what we expected to get, and we're going to write it to our local machine. So that we're going to be doing a bit of work in here. Since I'm doing a demo today at 1:30 California time, that's Pacific Standard Time, since I'm doing a demo at 1:30, I'm going to go ahead and take my lunch break and do a couple things and get ready for it, because I got to swap out computers, which I'm using. I have one with, it's a good demo machine. So I'll swap out the machines, get it going, and then I will be back at 1:30 to show you a demo of where we are and how the product works and a bunch of stuff about it. So if you want to connect with me, that's 1:30 California time. I will be back then and we'll play around with the demo. So thanks for showing up. Thanks for following. Thanks for everything. And like I said, I'll have that code in your hands on September 30th. So coming up soon. I'll be back in a couple hours. See you then. Okay, let's see here.